Welcome to topic 2 on private equity. This topic's made up of 2 readings. The first one focuses on private equity assets. So we basically would just do an introduction to sort of private equity in general, and then focus on different types of private equity investments, things like venture capital and buyouts. And then 4.2 we'll look at private equity funds, and we'll focus on buyout funds and venture capital funds. And we'll also look at a couple of other different ways of accessing private equity investments. So we'll begin 4.1. Okay, so as I said, we'll do an overview of sort of talking about private equity and some of the sort of basic characteristics of private equity investments. And then we're going to focus on different types of private equity. And we're going to focus actually specifically in 3 categories of private equity: venture capital, growth equity, and buyouts. And we'll see that these basically sort of span the business cycle for companies. All right, so here are the 3 major categories that we can kind of break down private equity into. Of course, there's no standard classification, but this is sort of what we use here in the CAIA curriculum. So venture capital, growth equity, and buyouts. And as I said, they basically span the continuum of the business cycle for a company. So venture capital is when the company is starting out and needs financing. And so venture capital will be equity financing provided for these startup companies. And then as the companies start to grow and need more capital for expansion, then that's when growth equity would step in. And these are basically companies that are emerging and growing, but obviously, as I said, they need capital for expansion, and the positions would be non-controlling for the private equity investor. And then the third category is buyout. So this is when the company's much more, well, actually quite established, and the private equity investor would be buying a significant share of the established company. And here it is a control investment, so they'd be looking for full control of the company. Obviously, private equity is a very long-term investment. It requires a lot of hands-on management and monitoring by the investors. And as we said, these 3 categories span the business cycle. So if you can think of it, sort of venture capital, if you look down at the